Mic check. 1 2. 1 2 1 2. All right. Grand rising to you fine viewers out there in cyber world. Peace Sage. Peace Natural Market. This is gonna be a real quick video. I was gonna record it, but my other computer had to restart, and I said, well, it'll be faster. I just do this live, and I ain't gotta edit it. We got a full day ahead of us, so I wanted to make sure I got this out before the upcoming full moon. So let's talk about it. We got a full moon that happens at 7:22 p.m. Central Standard Time. You got to adjust it for wherever you are in the world. Yeah, but 7:22 p.m. Um, Peace, poetic heart. And I want to just talk about this, the emphasis on this, what I think this full moon emphasizes. One thing is interesting is that today Venus stations direct at 24 degrees of Saturn. And so I think that's significant that Venus being the ruler of the full moon is stationing direct the day of this full moon. So it's almost revelatory, but at the same time, I feel like there's something about some type of peace or harmony that is being realized even in the midst of chaos. So let me pull this chart up for the full moon. Let me see if I got it. Let me find it. Make sure I got the right one queued up. Okay. What's up, G? What's up, E? Um, okay. Here we go. We see the full moon will be at 23 degrees 19 minutes of Libra. And first thing we see is that we've got a big old T square going on with this. Here's the full moon. Here's the sun. And there's Mars. Still in this still in Cancer. It's in the last few degrees here. So thankfully it has completed its retrograde, it's direct, and it is preparing to make its re-ingress into Leo. But in addition to this T square, we have a trigger, which is Chiron, which is at 23 degrees of Aries. So this contradicts my opening statement about I feel like there's some type of harmony and peace because this is a disharmonious aspect that is forming here, or that we have formed. because it's active right now. We're in it. It's very it's very inflammatory, it's combustive, it is chaotic. Mars in Cancer. Our internal world is combustive. Our blood has been under, well, I don't want to say that word because that'll bring some of those AI bills. Our blood has been stressed. Let's put it that way. Our emotional bodies have been taxed, especially with Mars retrograde in a sign where it's debilitated. It's put a stress on the family unit. It's put a stress on the framework of this so-called nation. But here we have this thing. We know full moons bring things to a head, right? This culmination point. We know there's a lot going on to where we are kind of anticipating things coming to a head just in our world. So how could you possibly see anything harmonious in this? Well, we look for clues. We look for clues. If we got this T square forming, right? So if there's a T square, then that means there are three, and this is a cardinal. So keep this word in mind. This is action. The cardinal signs are doorways. They open the door to a season. So think of action, think of a door, and even in Hebrew, think of the dalet, the doorway. This is action. Now, these three signs that are in this tense aspect, where are they pushing all of their energy? Their energy is getting pushed into Capricorn because that is the sign that is not part of this aspect, right? So all of that work going on between Libra and Aries and Cancer is placing an emphasis in Capricorn. And some of the themes of Capricorn are government, enforcement of laws, it's power, it is force, it is what else is Capricorn? Limitations. The limitations defined by law. Capricorn is also the enforcement of the law. Capricorn public status. But this is where I wanna hang my hat though. Capricorn is career. Because your public status coincides with your career. And there's an emphasis on that word. And I don't want you to get bogged down in just thinking career as in your job or whatever. I want you to think of it in what the word really is. It's car, and car means chariot. And chariot is the same as a carriage. So your 10th house, which coincides with Capricorn, one astrologer, I read her stuff. I wish I could give her, I read this years ago. She said Capricorn or the 10th house is the chariot of the sun. So the chariot of the sun. So in mythology, Helios, the fiery chariot. So how do you bring your sun to the world stage? And the 10th house, when the sun is in the 10th house, that can be a promise or a chance for prominence. You know, when I read a chart with the 10th house, or someone's child has a son in the 10th house, I always like to let them know there's a potential for prominence. This person could possibly dine with kings and queens. It's a promise, which, you know, promises aren't always kept. You know, so, but we know that when the sun is there in the 10th, it is seen, right? So your career, in essence, that word is really talking about how you bring your light to the world stage. How do you bring your light so that the world can see who you are? What will you be known for? Right? Why am I putting so much emphasis on this? Well, beyond the fact that this T square releases in Capricorn, look at the ruler of the full moon and the ruler of Capricorn. They are together right now. You see, you, Venus was retrograde. So that means Venus in this retrograde motion had to cross Saturn's face degree wise because Venus had been in Aries. Venus retrograde, and its retrograde moved all the way back to 24 degrees of Pisces. Cross Saturn's face. Remember, Saturn is the taskmaster. Saturn's about power, force. Saturn is like you got to go and take your SAT, and there's the test proctor who's monitoring to make sure you're not cheating. You got a number two pencil, you know, that you're not looking around, you sit straight ahead. So when things conjoin, crossing his face the same as it conjoined it, then the energies of the two planets blend. So Saturn's about get your house in order, get things in order. And you know, Venus deals with not just love and expression of love and beauty. Venus is also dealing with our money because Venus rules Taurus, resources. Venus rules an aspect of creativity through Libra and Taurus because Taurus is beauty, you know, and Libra is the expression of that beauty, which can coincide with art, music. So maybe you getting your creative. I know I've been going back and thinking about my creativity and like, I gotta get this in order. I gotta get some system to get out more of my creativity to it be able to manifest, right? Well, now those two are with Venus direct. They are now sharing that energetic space. And so they're going to have a exact conjunction. And then Venus is going to take this information that has been gathered with this commingling with Saturn and carry it on in the midst of a storm because we are in a definite storm. We're in it. But we know that squares provide energy to generate action. We know that oppositions create tension to force us to develop objectivity or perspective because we have to see the other side of things. So a T square gives us both of those. We're having to expand our perspective and we're having to take action all at the same time. And this action is coming around to who are you in the world? Yeah, it puts the emphasis on the government, and we see a lot of stuff happening, parts moving in government. We don't know what's real, we don't know what's fake, and a lot of that. But what about your personal self governance? my personal self-governance. It puts the emphasis if we want to make it personal, which we should, because that's all we can control is our personal world, right? Um, I wrote, I said, this full moon may spur us into action, feeling a strong impulse to see and acknowledge the wound, but to also take action to move through it. Now, what that is referring to, of course, is Chiron right here, because we know that the moon is illuminating or it is reflecting the light of the sun. So it shows us things that have been developing. So I feel like another thing about this harmony here, like something is happening if we allow it to move through, recognize, acknowledge, but also move through something that may have been binding us or holding us back. This is particularly special for my generation because we have Chiron and Aries. I'm approaching my Chiron return, so this is really speaks to me. This really speaks to me personally. Um, I have I have cohorts who got birthdays today and tomorrow. Shout out to Natasha and Julie. So you people who have, your sun at 22, 23 degrees, 24 degrees of Aries, this is, you're going to really be feeling this. Even Libras, you know, 22, 23, 24 Libras. But we're in a stage of, it's like it's these constant movements of becoming when we don't know what we're becoming. We don't know, but the way we respond to the impetus that gets put out in different phases of, well, it's time for you to shift and be something else. It's time for you to shift and be something else. And our willingness to move with that is our protection. Your protection is and what does Deuteronomy start with? Shema. Oh, your ability to hear. Shema is hear. Our ability to hear. And sometimes the message is telling you just to move. And you're like, but I don't know exactly where I'm going, but I told you to move. I didn't tell you to know the destination. I said move, but I'm afraid to move. Well, if you stay here, only entropy awaits you. You must move. This is an action generated axis right here we got. So there's also something here about courage. Chiron and Aries. There may be fears that may be crippling us. Fear of the unknown. And maybe we're getting the push to move, even though this is a tense aspect that we have here. But again, Venus is direct now. And she's an exalted direct Venus. She's, just not forget, she's in Pisces. And she's conjoining Saturn. So she's not being just swept up into the waters of bliss and fantasy that Venus and Pisces can have. It is, she's kind of been through the ringer a little bit. She came through the first time and everything was beautiful. Then she was debilitated in Aries and, then had to turn back and like, okay, well, then had to hook up with Saturn again. And now this is a more grounded approach to realizing the dream. Venus and Pisces is dreamy, but it's a dream with a plan. What's your plan, man? That's what my uncle used to say, Capricorn. Venus, and look at the proximity. Venus Um, you got Saturn in the middle. You got the North Node on one side and Venus on the other. Saturn's the bridge. Saturn is doing what it does. It's the bones. It is the bones between destiny and harmony. Because Venus is 24, North Node is at 26, Saturn in the middle. Then we got Mercury at 28, which I think it may be a little cloudy right now, but if we can tap into Mercury in water, period, especially in Pisces, invites us into the right side of the right hemisphere of the brain. Because the left side principles are kind of difficult when Mercury's in Pisces, but so it's debilitated. But it's a chance for us to turn on the magical side. Remember, Mercury can travel anywhere. It can travel in the water. That's what it does. It travels from Mount Olympus to the underworld. He has the key to the city. He just doesn't like being in water, but he can go anywhere. And it's conjoining Neptune, so that's further foggy confusion, such and such and such. But again, there's a upside to everything. This is super creative energy right here. It's creative energy with direction if we have listened to Saturn. Okay, now for the US though, Chiron, the US chart has Chiron, I think at 20 of Aries. So we can really see how this is things at a boiling point, bubbling up. Peace that crazy. Peace, God, science. We can see things bubbling here in the US. And there's a lot of gamemanship and playing with our lives, basically, whether it's prices of things and access to things, your 401k, or if you just independently invest in the stock market, I've heard, it's being felt. It's a real thing. People are losing real money. So even with I wrote, I'm just going off some of my notes. Even with the inflammatory climate in the US, we're still moving forward, although many challenges persist. I wrote the sun is received by a debilitated Mars. See, because the sun is in Aries, it's being received by Mars, which is in Cancer. But look at this. Well, who is receiving Mars? The moon. And although the moon doesn't have technically dignity in Libra, I think it's a place where the moon can find some comfort. And then that moon is being received ultimately by a Venus that is exalted. So even in the midst of this tension, there are some. It's all hope ain't lost. It's coming down to what are we doing with what we have. As Mars, here's one good thing. I said, as Mars separates, though, oh, well, I'll come back to that. But let's just deal with the fact that Mars is in a separating T square. See, the moon and sun axis is 23, Mars is 27. So it is pulling away. I think it would be worse if Mars were at 20 degrees. It would be an applying square. So that means we haven't reached a crescendo yet. This is a separating T square. So things are shifting and moving. That's something else to keep in mind. Now, the challenge again though is that as it separates here and it moves out of debilitated state in Cancer is now going to move in Leo, but then it's going to go right into a opposition with Pluto. It's going to revisit the opposition we had earlier in the year. But again, Mars is moving fast now. So it's not like this is not like the retrograde. Retrograde with Mars is it's months that we're dealing with this energy that we've had. This opposition with Pluto is going to be fast. It's going to be intense, but it moves on quickly. It'll perfect in late April. So in some ways, energy is going to get tense in late April, early May, but in others, energy is going to lighten up. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but this is going to be something we talk about later. But we got to pay attention to late April where Uranus hits 26 degrees. Got to pay attention to late April, early May. It's very big. It's big for the US. The US moon is at 27 degrees of Aquarius. So it will be, Uranus will be at 26 and it'll be squaring Trump's ascendant at 29 and his Mars at 26 of Leo. So we got to pay attention to that. But on the same token, like I said, Mars will be out of Cancer and Mars will bypass his opposition with Pluto and it will be moving on through Leo. So we get a break in that regard. And we also got at the summer solstice, Jupiter. This will be like the story in the Bible where Christ rides into the triumphant return. He rides in on a donkey and a colt. Acellus borealis, Acellus australis. That's Cancer. That's when the sun comes in, the triumphant sun rides into the city. Jupiter is going to conjoin the sun around the solstice. One of the more magical solstices I think we've had. So, yeah, we got a lot of things showing this. We got to find where, how do I get in other words? So we see things happening on the world stage, on the national stage, but what am I doing right now? Like I've been saying, creators got to create. In the midst of seeing Krypton coming to the end, you got to put out a pod that's going to go and form the next world. Like that Superman story is Kabbalistic. Kal-El is the world to come. He's a Saya, the world to come. We got to create the world to come in the midst of us being like, oh man, I'm living at a time where I'm seeing something ending. Well, why did you incarnate at a time such as this? Maybe you incarnated to create the world to come. How are you creating? Okay, here's some things I just wanted to highlight before I go. We must remember that we've endured several retrogrades, especially Mars retrograde, and a debilitated Mars, a Mars that was out of bounds. And just a few days ago, Mars and its dispositor, meaning Mars and Cancer, received by the moon. The moon would be the dispositor because it rules Cancer. Do you know they were both out of bounds? So if you didn't completely bug out, right? You still got your house, you ain't dead. Pat yourself on the back. Sometimes you got to look at what you have overcome. Like if you don't study astrology, you won't even realize how much you have just come through. Mars was debilitated, out of bounds. Its ruler was out of the dispositor was out of bounds. Um, Retrograde, squaring Chiron. Look at all this stuff. Excuse me, that you just came through, and you still kicking. So you got a chance. Mars, especially in its rulership of Aries, speaks to a cosmic chance because Aries is a seed that made it. Aries is the cosmic chance. You have to have an ego and a personality as it represents your cosmic chance. This is my starting point. You know, Mars also rules over gambling. So this is the starting point. I'm gonna see if I can hit a 7. Let me see if I can hit a 11 on the come out. I hope I don't roll snake eyes. But if I don't throw the dice, I don't know. So you come through all of this, just like I told the story about me coming through the storm. Well, collectively, we're coming out of a storm, although we're still in one, but let's take time to recognize the storm we just came through. I go back and reflect on I drove through 5 tornadoes and I said I'm Superman. Not on no egotistical nothing. Cause sometimes you gotta remind yourself of what you've been through so that you can go through what you're going through. That's my point of bringing that up. There was a bad, and I gotta go. I gotta go. I gotta go. But there was a bad wreck. I'm gonna show you something too. I'm gonna show you something. Uh, I'm gonna go quickly on this. It's just something for you to ponder. Oh, it already came up. Okay. I thought it. That was a wreck. I'm gonna tell you a quick story. I was on TikTok or something. Somewhere just came across this wreck that happened in a place, Kenneth Square, Pennsylvania, right? It showed a lady in an SUV at an intersection. And while she's sitting there, a tree falls down into the back seat. It crushed the car, but it landed to where it had landed in the back seat. And I said, there's some symbolism in this. I got to look into this. So I couldn't find no time for the accident. First, to be a astrologer, you have to learn how to be an investigator. To be an astrologist, you have to be an investigator. I've called people, I put on fake voices, called Tennessee to get people's time of birth. I'll change my accent to the region. Maybe it wasn't even necessary, but I'm just thinking if they hear a black man, they might be more hesitant. Let me go into the natural dialect. I called Tennessee. I say I need a time. We're trying to put together a family Bible for my grandmother, and by God, we just can't find the time. And I get real folksy with them, and they feel comfortable, and they give me that birth time. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. All these ways to get data. Uh, an astrologist has to be a scientist, and you got to know how to pick up clues. You got to know how to listen to people when they're talking. You know, you got to know when you got to have more compassion. But that's another conversation. But my point is, I could not find the time. I went through 1,000 articles, videos. Nobody had a time. Guess what? They kept saying it was at a outside of a Carco. What's up, Roscoe? outside of a Carco gas station. And it finally hit me. Look up the number for the gas station. I called up there. Guy says, "Hello." I said, "Is this Carco?" Yes, it is. I said, "Well, I'm a uh, journalist in Texas, and we heard about the accident you all had outside your gas station, and wondering if by chance, I was going to write a blog on it, and wondering if you knew the time that it happened." He said, I think around 7:42, but I have the exact time. I said, "Oh." He goes and checks 7:47 a.m. Got the time. So that's just a quick little sidebar about how you gotta have an investigative mind, not just with astrology, with everything. This is how I find stuff. You gotta know what questions to ask. It ain't all about what you know, just know what questions to ask. Okay. So I got off track. Sidebar. So I was just so excited. I'm still excited that I got that time. What's significant? The road that she was on is called Route 52, but Route 52 has another name. Guess what it's called? Lenape Road. Very interesting. Lenape, and I'm just gonna write this because there is something called the and this same, remember, this is not a political term. This is a heterogenic term, but these are also a nation. Hmm. All right. That's a nation that we give the term tribe, but it's a nation. All right. Now, this is in Pennsylvania, which is very close to Delaware. Delaware. Why is Delaware significant? Because that is where certain papers were found or were signed, where a certain corporation um, has its headquarters. Put it that way. So on Lenape Road, this tree, which was an oak tree, I mean, I did some quick research on this. They've had a problem with droughts, droughts, plague, drought. And the ash trees and the oak trees have been toppling over. This particular tree was an oak tree. Oak is another word for ock. Ock, light. Ash, fire. So a hidden light came, and that was a warning. And I gotta go fast. I can't really. I maybe I have to do another video on this where I can take my time. It was a warning because at that particular place in Kenneth Square, Mars was in the fourth house of nation, and the 12th house is intercepted, hidden enemies that we cannot see, spiritual forces. Spiritual forces. All of this stuff going on in Aries is intercepted in the 12th house. So we can't 12th is already hidden, and it's really hidden because it's in an intercepted house. There's trouble accessing this to figure out where it's coming from. That was a warning. Not for you who out here struggling every day. That was a warning for those who know that warning was for. And I'll leave it at that. As always, know the stars to know yourself. Stay down till you get up, and when you get up, stay down. And 720astrology.com for everything. Readings, educational tools. My bundle is available. I'll come back and show the bundle again so you know what's in it. But until then, stay magical, stay creative, stay in your power.